So, one of Donald Trump's major wine distributorships just got completely severed from its supply chain, and Warren Buffett is now weighing in on what this means for Trump's business empire. It's honestly hard to believe we're watching a sitting president's commercial ventures collapse in real time while he's supposed to be running the country. But guess what? The distributor that handled Trump Winery products across 7 states just terminated their contract, citing what they're calling unprecedented reputational liability concerns. This isn't just about some fancy bottles of wine sitting in a warehouse. We're talking about a fundamental conflict between presidential power and private profit that's been brewing since day one. And trust me, when Warren Buffett starts publicly questioning whether a president should be running commercial operations while wielding executive authority, you know we've crossed into dangerous territory. Let me fill you in on what's been happening lately. So, Trump Winery. Established back in 2011 when Trump purchased the former Kluge Estate Winery in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's always made a big deal about it being one of the largest vineyards on the East Coast, constantly promoting it at rallies and official events. From the get-go, this winery has been a point of pride for him, something he talks about whenever he wants to showcase his business acumen. Whether it was bragging about the quality of the wine at press conferences, mentioning it during State of the Union addresses, or having photos taken with bottles bearing his name, Trump really cemented this winery as part of his brand identity. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We're now 3 months into his second term, and the ethical walls are closing in. Distribution contracts are getting canceled, supply chain partners are walking away, and major retailers are pulling Trump-branded products from their shelves. This mess is unfolding because the business community and legal experts are at a standstill over whether a sitting president can actively profit from commercial ventures while making policy decisions that affect those same industries. And guess who's stuck right in the middle? Yep, the Trump Organization's entire commercial operation. The company is supposed to be in a trust managed by his sons, but here's the kicker. Trump can pull money out of that trust whenever he wants. He's not interested in genuine separation. He wants total control over everything. And that's exactly what's creating this constitutional crisis. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. The wine business operates on relationships, reputation, and trust. When your brand becomes toxic to half the country and legally questionable to the other half, distributors start doing the math. Now, back to the matter at hand. Reports from around March 3rd revealed just how panicked Trump's business team was becoming. Colonial Wine Distributors, one of the major players handling Trump Winery products across Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, and 4 other states, labeled Trump's continued personal involvement in the winery as constitutionally indefensible, and even went as far as to say they could face legal liability for facilitating what amounts to presidential profiteering. Talk about strong words. Essentially, the distributor was calling Trump a walking Emoluments Clause violation for not truly divesting from his business interests. And this wasn't a private conversation. Colonial Wine made sure to air their grievances publicly in a letter to their retail partners, making it clear that they were not happy with the legal exposure Trump's business arrangement created for them. This announcement sent shockwaves through the wine industry because it raised all sorts of questions. If Colonial Wine Distributors, a major regional player, could turn against Trump's business model, what did that mean for everyone else scrambling to maintain their commercial relationships with Trump-branded products? Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this pattern. Trump's loyalty really only extends to himself. Whenever someone stops being useful or becomes a liability, he's quick to turn on them. And the reverse is equally true. Just think about Deutsche Bank distancing themselves after January 6th, refusing new business once reputational damage outweighed profit. Then the PGA Championship pulled out of Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster after sponsor backlash. And let's not forget Mazars USA, Trump's longtime accounting firm, cutting ties in 2022, stating they could no longer stand behind his financial statements. When your own accountants publicly disavow your numbers, that's a crisis. Now, it looks like Trump Winery's distribution network is in the hot seat. You can build all the business relationships in the world, but the moment legal liability outweighs profit, partners will toss you aside without a second thought. So, what did Trump do to cause this distributor revolt? Well, it all boils down to the Emoluments Clause and his refusal to properly divest. Ethics watchdogs wanted complete separation while Trump insisted a trust managed by his sons was sufficient. Distribution contracts started getting canceled since no one was willing to take on constitutional liability. As president, Trump kept promoting Trump Winery at public events and refused to sell his stake. His approach seemed to be dare anyone to challenge him legally. Many business partners initially accepted the publicity boost, but as legal challenges mounted, serious issues started cropping up. Congressional investigations, state lawsuits, and federal ethics complaints were stacking up. Legal analysis from Georgetown and Harvard indicated Americans were increasingly convinced Trump was violating the Constitution's prohibition on presidents receiving payments from domestic sources. This was when Trump's business team began to sweat. He doesn't want to be tied to businesses hemorrhaging partners and facing constant legal scrutiny. And then Colonial Wine went ahead and cited legal liability and reputational concerns to exit the contract. When Trump caught wind of this through his attorneys, he lost it. In his eyes, business partners questioning his ethics is disloyalty. Distributors publicly cutting ties? That's pure betrayal. Now, this left Colonial in a tight spot. On one side, they need to protect themselves from potential legal liability. On the flip side, they face business consequences of publicly breaking with someone who still commands political influence. So Colonial is caught in a bind. They can either keep distributing Trump wine and accept constitutional liability, or they can terminate the contract and face Trump's potential retaliation. It's a tough situation, and that's the mess Trump creates for business partners. He demands loyalty and wants them to ignore ethical concerns, but then points fingers when legal heat intensifies. This whole scenario is causing major stress within the wine distribution industry. If Colonial Wine has turned on Trump's business model and is willing to publicly cite constitutional concerns, every distributor is left wondering if they're the next target for ethics investigations or congressional subpoenas. Those regional distributors who are trying to balance profitability with legal compliance are now worried sick about being the next one to get dragged into federal court. Meanwhile, the Trump-loyal distributors believe Colonial isn't loyal enough and that they're too quick to cave to pressure from ethics groups. Things became even more intense when Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits, one of the largest distributors in America and someone who has generally stayed neutral on political controversies, quietly reduced their Trump Winery product lines by 60%. They have been pushing for contract modifications that would shield them from Emoluments Clause liability and criticize Colonial for not doing this sooner. When someone as commercially powerful as Southern Glazers starts pulling back from Trump products, you know you're in a world of hurt. And here's where Warren Buffett enters the picture. On March 5th, during Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting, Buffett was asked about presidential business conflicts and whether he'd ever invest in a company where the CEO maintained active commercial interests while holding public office. Buffett didn't hold back with his response. He stated that any situation where a president maintains the ability to profit from private business while wielding executive power represents a fundamental breakdown of the checks and balances that make capitalism work. That's Buffett speak for saying, this is completely unacceptable and undermines both democratic governance and free market principles. There's no legitimate business case for allowing this. The significance of this cannot be overstated. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha himself, calling out the structural corruption of presidential profiteering creates a real problem for Trump. It's a significant rebuke, reminding everyone that business ethics and constitutional principles aren't negotiable. This is a huge moment that doesn't usually happen in functioning democracies. You don't typically see America's most respected investor publicly stating that a sitting president's business arrangement is fundamentally corrupt. Legal experts and business analysts are noting that we haven't seen this level of presidential business entanglement since the Teapot Dome scandal in the 1920s. Andrew Ross Sorkin, a financial columnist for the New York Times who's generally measured in his commentary, went on CNBC and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said that if Buffett is using terms like fundamental breakdown, institutional investors should be deeply concerned about any exposure to Trump-affiliated businesses. Just think about that for a moment. The most trusted voice in American finance is essentially telling investors to run away from anything Trump-related. And this is coming from someone who typically avoids political commentary. George Conway, a conservative attorney and constitutional scholar, mentioned that Buffett's intervention signals that the business community is finally recognizing that presidential profiteering isn't just unethical, it's destructive to market integrity. When business experts from both sides start tossing around terms like constitutional violation and market corruption, that's the moment to really pay attention. So, let's break down what this distributor collapse and Buffett's intervention could mean, because it has serious consequences for how our presidency and markets operate. First up is immediate political fallout. Trump is already facing backlash due to multiple investigations, and his refusal to divest is becoming a central 2028 campaign issue. Republican representatives are anxious about defending a president losing major business contracts while in office. And now you've got Warren Buffett essentially calling Trump's business model corrupt. Democrats will argue that Trump believes he's above constitutional constraints, backed by Buffett's comments and canceled contracts. You can expect footage of Buffett's statement popping up in opposition campaign ads for the next 2 years. Now, let's touch on what this means for business ethics and presidential accountability. The wine distribution industry wanted to stay out of constitutional battles, but by citing Emoluments Clause concerns, they've waded into political controversy. Trump and his supporters will attack these distributors and Buffett, questioning their motives. Yet these businesses probably felt they had no choice. If they stayed silent while facilitating presidential profiteering, their own credibility would take a bigger hit. This shines a spotlight on whether presidents can use their office to enrich private businesses. The founders designed the Emoluments Clause specifically to prevent presidents from using public office for private gain. They understood that when a leader can profit from their decisions, every policy choice becomes suspect. Is the president making this regulatory decision because it's good for America, or because it benefits his wine business, his hotels, his golf courses? That's the fundamental corruption the Constitution was designed to prevent. If this violation is allowed, it boosts presidential self-dealing and opens the door for future presidents to misuse power in ways we can't imagine. Each time Trump brushes aside ethical norms or attacks anyone questioning his business dealings, it weakens democratic guardrails. It makes behavior that used to be unacceptable feel normal. Think about it. If Trump can maintain active control over commercial operations while serving as president, what's to stop the next president from doing the same with defense contracts or pharmaceutical companies? These actions don't disappear when Trump leaves office. They become precedent, and that's dangerous. Democracy relies on the principle that public servants work for the public good, not personal profit. Looking ahead to 2028 and the 2026 midterms, the narrative being set now will influence how things go. If the story is Trump battling every ethical constraint and losing business partners, that spells trouble for Republicans. Voters don't reward corruption and constitutional violations. They want integrity and ethical leadership. Democrats will champion a message focused on restoring ethical governance. After years of presidential profiteering, voters want the presidency to function as the founders intended. That message might hit home for a lot of voters, including some Republicans who believe in separation between commerce and political power. So here's the deal. Warren Buffett just publicly called Trump's business arrangement a fundamental breakdown of American capitalism, and one of Trump's major distributors severed their contract citing constitutional liability. This isn't just about wine bottles and distribution contracts. It's about whether America will tolerate a president using public office for private profit. If we allow this to continue, then we're basically saying the Emoluments Clause doesn't matter anymore. Constitutional ethics are optional, and presidential power can be wielded for personal enrichment. That would mean we're stepping into a completely new realm where the presidency becomes just another business venture and public service is a side gig to commercial empire building. It's about so much more than just Trump Winery distribution networks. It's about whether we genuinely have a constitutional system that holds presidents accountable, or if we're just stuck with whoever can best exploit their office for personal gain. So keep an eye on this. Things are just heating up. More distributors are likely to follow Colonial Wine's lead as the legal liability becomes impossible to ignore. The next few weeks are going to be crucial as we see whether Trump's business empire can survive the weight of constitutional scrutiny, or if this is the beginning of a complete commercial collapse. The stakes have never been higher, the constitutional questions more serious, and the outcome more unpredictable. Warren Buffett has drawn a line in the sand. Now we'll see if American business and the American people are willing to enforce it.